Hey everybody, this is Rich from the Metal Cell podcast. I'm delighted to welcome Ciaran Coughlin of Obsidian Imagery. How are you doing, Ciaran?
Not too bad. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, Stephen Lindsay of the Iron Parasite.
How are you getting on?
Very good, Steve. And Ken Coleman of Unreal Imagery. How are you, Ken?
Hey, I'm good, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, great, lads. Welcome to the show. I've been championing the art scene in the metal community for probably as long as the show has started, really. And I'm delighted to get you all on for this episode. So we've got plenty to talk about, and hopefully it'll be fairly interesting as well. And it'll give viewers an insight into what you have to go through to get to the final stage of an art piece and to get it up for a band, be it a merchandising or an album or even just social media sites as well, band websites, etc. So I suppose the first thing is, like, we've spent a year last year again in lockdown. How was it for you creatively? Maybe Ken, you could start with that one.
It was a balance because I was at home. Let's say this time last year, I was at home teaching here, just in my desks, teaching online remotely because I teach third level in Clonmel Digital Campus, teaching in game art design and animation.
Okay.
So we're teaching away, doing Photoshop tutorials, 3D modeling here. But the balance was my little fellow who's 4 was home as well. So he's over on the couch here watching YouTube. And if sometime I went to the kitchen once, it was so funny. I went to the kitchen and I came back. He had the earphones on, sitting on my desk with the drawing tablet pen in his hand and the webcam going, "Can you hear me? Do you know what I'm doing?" And trying to teach my class. So I was like, he's on the right track anyway. I think if I can get him straight from Lego into ZBrush 3D modeling and we can bypass Roblox and Minecraft, Jesus, I'll have him on 60 grand a week in a game studio by the age of 15, I'll be great. Yeah. He can teach me about NFTs, So, but I don't know what it was like for Stephen and Ciaran, but a lot of people came out of the woodwork who wanted to do things like write books, solo albums, things that they had always put on the back burner for years and years, and now they had the time. They were like, "Oh, we need art for this and that and so forth," But most of my time was teaching. But I did, I got to do the artwork for Abaddon, actually, Abaddon Incarnate, for their new CD.
Nice one.
So I know Kunal is putting the final touches on the layout, and you had Olan on 2 episodes ago?
Correct, yeah.
So that was fun because, and I did Faroon in the time, and
that was amazing artwork on Faroon, actually.
Thank you. That was a really quick one for John, because he just needed something fast, so we worked it up quite quick. And what was the other one? The Risen Dread's recent single before the album. Night Hag is the album, but the recent single did the artwork on that one as well. And
which one was that now? Was it...
God, I'm sorry now, they'll kill me. The names after falling out of my head of the single. But they showed me the Night Hag artwork. It was done by one of their Brazilian mates, and I kind of followed suit on the team.
Okay.
But it was great. It was a buzz for me to do the artwork for Abaddon and for Ruin, because growing up in the metal scene in Ireland, I would have been first experienced them at something like the Day of Darkness in about 97 up in Port Leash, the Crossroads.
Yeah, circles, circles.
And people going, "Oh my God, that's the singer from Primordial," and you're like, "Oh," and the black metal scene was kind of in its infancy, but getting there in Ireland at the time, the black and the death metal. So obviously death metal was around a lot longer, but the black metal stuff we'd really only heard of Primordial, and then there was a place in Limerick called Black Spot, and was getting like the Waylander album and stuff like that. And then seeing Abaddon and meeting and seeing Faroon, and then when we finally started getting gigs, we stopped up with the High Stool here in Limerick, and those kind of bands coming down, getting asked to do their artwork, I was like, "Holy shit, this is amazing!" Thanks so much, guys.
Yeah.
So that was one of the highlights anyway of the lockdown for me, was doing the artwork for those two bands.
Yeah, like you did work as well with the Limerick hurling prints, which was very interesting.
Oh yeah, that was a mad one. For about 10 years, I've been doing kind of fantasy art based on my city, kind of mythological stuff. Mm-hmm. And when Axel Foley passed away, I did a quick. I had my 3D renders ready, and I did a print of like I do these minotaurs, but they've got stag's antlers rather than the head of a bull. And I did put the number 8, and he's walking into the team room of Thomond Park, and it's all a silhouette with lots of lights. But one of my DJ friends here, because I did a lot of social photography in Limerick, so I knew a lot of the dance scene as well. I was the only guy in a dance club like Trinity Rooms in Limerick when the earbuds first came out, listening to Lamb of God's new album, taking photographs of guys in the middle of a rave, like, you know. So it was nice to be quite distant from that scene, but I knew all that anyway. One of the DJs came along and he was working for 2FM and he put it on their Twitter and it went mental after that. So after that, when Limerick won the 2018, I did the same thing, and because they hadn't won the All Ireland in 35 years at the time. So and now it's just been put up as public art. One of them we've got electrical boxes here in Limerick City, where there's a number of artists from Limerick or workers around the town. Like, so myself and my wife both have our artwork up in the city at the moment. So that's nice.
There's a few of them around Cork as well, those electrical boxes with graffiti on them, or just notice them, and some artwork as well, Ciaran. Yeah, you saw them.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
Yeah, some of them are really cool, actually.
Yeah, it's a good idea, man, and people are going past them. I mean, as I said, like for Limerick and the hurling fan, it's I'd say it must be literally a showstopper for them just to see this on an electrical box. Have you got inquiries from it since, or did any of the Limerick hurling panel reach out to you or anything like that?
I know one of my friends' dads who has they have a small they have an art gallery here in Limerick and the mom, Anne-Marie, does fine art painting, and he runs a print shop. But the dad was trying to reach out to JP McManus for him to see it.
Wow.
That was the 2018 one. But I know people bought them off me as gifts for Christmas, you know, for their hurling, their dads or their buddies. The funniest story about it is I've lived in Limerick for 30 years. I went to school in Limerick for 30 years, but I grew up in Newport Town, just outside Limerick. And my dad worked in Limerick for 30 years. But you know what it's like now with hurling. He grew up tip hurling. And when I put the picture up and I came home to the house with my brother-in-law, who was pure Limerick, my dad turned around and goes, "Fucking turncoat." And I have other people inquiring, going, "Can I get one of those off you? But can you change it to a Tipperary jersey, or can you do it up in a Clare armour?" And I'm like, "No, sorry lads, can't be doing that." You know, it's
it's fairly honourable now. I mean, because it's a quick kill there financially for you.
It could be, yeah, but for me, it's like it's exclusively Limerick and exclusively Munster when it comes to the Stags and the Warriors.
Yeah,
but I have done a similar. I have done a similar one set of designs for Savannah Hurling Club in Savannah, in the States.
What? Jesus Christ! Yeah. That's interesting.
So it's basically going here, throw the Wexford colours on it, and it was it. Put their logo, but I made sure to change up the designs quite a lot so that the Limerick one stands alone as its own thing. Like, you know.
Yeah. It's funny there because Steve, you have stuff as well. You're kind of doing kind of a project in relation to the Irish counties as well. You've Dublin and Wexford done.
Yeah, I was just thinking that it's one of these projects I kind of started, and I'm like, I have to really finish it. Like, I have like 2 or 3, I think, up on my social media stuff. I think I did Wexford and Dublin first because I'm originally from Dublin, but I've been living in Wexford now probably close to 20 years. Like.
And they're brilliant. They really are cool.
Thanks, man. What was I think the idea I kind of had behind it was like, you know, like every town in Ireland kind of has these like monuments and stuff. Like, so there's one in Wexford that I always liked. It's like the Pike Man, he's called. And he's in the bull ring in Wexford. So I actually went down and like took a photo of him, and I changed his head to like I think it was like a goat's skull head, and it was kind of like the idea I kind of got off. It was like, it was from I'm in a fencing group and it's called Goat's Head, and I was like, sure, I'll make it kind of a little nod to that and stuff. And it's even funny in that one in the background. There's like I like adding little silly things into my artwork sometimes, but like I don't make it really blatantly obvious. But like in the pile of skulls on the ground, there's like little strawberry. Because like Wexford's kind of known for strawberries, so it's only if you look really closely we actually see it. Like,
yeah, class. And like, how have you been coping last year with orders? And was it a busy year for you?
A bit of a weird few years, because I think I just started out as like, right, I'm gonna go self-employed, and I had gotten an office space in town, and the first week I was there, I was like, this is grand. And then like they kind of came in like COVID's after hitting Ireland now, so started getting all these restrictions. And the reason I went into the office was like, maybe I'll meet a few kind of clients in here that would be like, not heavy metal stuff, just kind of general graphic design kind of thing. And then all of a sudden it was like, well, you have to sit at all these separate desks. You can't meet people. You can't go into the lunchroom and all. And it's kind of like, there's no point in being in here. So I went back home then. And
where are you based, Steve? Is it Dublin or where?
Based in Wexford.
Oh, Wexford. Okay.
Yeah. And basically I went through a bit of a weird phase where there was literally nothing coming in. But then, like Ken said, there was a lot of projects then that are kind of popping up, I think, where people are like, I want to do this for a while. And I ended up getting a few like weird jobs where it's just like, or some of my bigger jobs even, like I got to do 2 album covers for Kurt Oldman. He does like he composed music on Game of Thrones, I think, and Guardians of the Galaxy and stuff. So I was like, class. Like,
awesome. I didn't know that. That's brilliant.
Yeah. And I got to do like 2 covers, so they're kind of like opposite of each other. So it was a really cool project. Like, and then recently, I think the start of this year, then as well, I got to do some artwork for DJ Hyper, who you'd know his song off the Cyberpunk trailer. Like if you heard the song, you'd probably know it. It's like, I looked on Spotify, there was like 20 million views on the song or something. I was like, oh, geez, he's actually a big artist. But it was funny even how I got that job. There's another DJ called Sardonic. I don't know if you know him. No. He kind of he's like a heavy metal DJ, kind of. And I had done like some fan art of his like years ago because he wears this really cool mask. And he was aware of my artwork, but like I commented on just one of his posts, and he obviously looked at my stuff and he's like, geez, your stuff's after getting really good. And he sent it on to him, and then I got that job that way. So I'm after having to get a few really cool jobs that way.
But you've been adding to your website as well, just private stuff. Kind of,
yeah. I'm really bad for doing the social media, and I think sometimes I'll go through like phases of like posting pretty regularly, and then after a while I was like, I'm kind of tired of posting for a while.
Yeah.
Congrats on the cover for a heavy music artwork masterpiece. That's brilliant.
Yeah.
Thanks very much.
I remember when you started posting that in the metal design group and kind of going and trying this new stuff, and you were trying out like being more detailed and patient and trying to do like a piece that took you months and months, and there it is on the front cover. So
thanks very much.
It's brilliant. Like
you actually got one of your artworks on one of the heavy metal books, wasn't it? It was the
Kane, wasn't it?
Yeah, I have it here. It was the Devil book. I did this one, Lucifero.
Yeah.
And it was mad because I only did that bit, and then the publisher came along and said, I want to use yours on the cover, so can you make it into a dust jacket? So I had to extend it all out. And I had to do it quick, so actually that's a macro photo of my bonsai tree. Right? And a couple of little 3D people and some steps from around Donegal somewhere, or Dingle or something. So myself and Steve would always be making our own stock photography and sharing ideas in the background. But actually, Steve, do you know what you said there about the local, you gave me an idea, just, I don't want to cut you off too much, but do you know what you're saying about the local art, and you're inspired by local, like strawberry and the local artifacts? Like, I'm just reading about the Pucán here and how that statue up and then his timing was banged.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
And it is actually a brilliant statue. It reminds me of the Scary Fairy Tales and Brian Froud and the Dark Crystal and all of that stuff growing up, the kind of art that would inspire me. And the fact that a town bandit is like,
it's
kind of feel like it's a Father Ted episode.
Yeah.
And I think, why don't we all just do a Pucán? Like, just do something with get all the artists, or put it up on the metal designers. Everyone has to design this Pucán in their style, using their culture from a different country or whatever,
I have one thing there between the two of you. For some reason, both of you were involved in Cranberry artwork. What was that about?
I think, Ken, you did something for them ages ago.
What happened was I went out to the Irish Chamber Orchestra and I photographed all the lads on the green screen, and I did all their poster artwork for the Poland tour in 2016 and the Cancun tour in around the same time when we were getting back together. And I've been tipping away then. I did artwork that Noel sat me down one day in one of the pubs and said, would you do some artwork for the new album coming up? And that was Dolores' last album. So I was working away on it, but then somebody for marketing stepped in and they wanted to go with the original photographer who did the couch because there was a 20th anniversary year, I think, in there.
Okay.
And I remember being kind of going, oh, but like it's one of the things that happens when we do this type of work. I've done artwork for 2 or 3 friends or businessmen who there was a businessman in Dublin who wanted to do a book, and he was a big guru who's pretty much, his name's gone on my head now, but he was like Dragon's Den style business guru who teach people. I did a cover for him, he loved it, but the marketing team steps in and they wanted something else. Okay. And there's a very good author here in Limerick, Dan Mooney, who's on to maybe his 3rd book now. His first book was very successful, and I did the cover for his first book. And again, marketing. It was called Me, Myself, and I think. God, he'll kill me if he sees this. Anyway, marketing stepped in again, and that cover now never saw the light of day. So, yeah, it's just the way it is. But like, even I was just literally today fixing something for one of the lads, touch-ups on some old photographs that are needed for a documentary or something. And I've done some filming in one of their studios for, it was like for some extra director cut additional footage that would come bonus for a download on an album. But the most fun thing I actually did is they dropped me over a load of slides. And what happened was, if you've ever heard of Andy Earls, he's a very, very famous photographer who has shot covers for Johnny Cash and Madonna. And they dropped me over a load of his slides. Now, we're not talking small negative, we're talking medium format, full color slides. And they were like, is there any chance you could digitize those? Because we need the artwork touched. We need these touched up. They're a bit cracked or torn. And because we want to use, and it was the 1993 couch studio shots and the shots of the couch out in London. I still have them in a drawer because I got to keep some as a souvenir.
Class.
Cool. That was a couple of years back, but they didn't think anything could be done. So what I did is I actually got my light box, one of my studio lights, and put it down low, and I taped the negative onto the thing, and I searched because it actually said on the film what type of film you used, all the measurements of the film. I googled the film, and I set my macro lens to the same settings, and the camera down like this, and I set the macro lens like that. And I used the settings on the exact same settings as Andy Earls used on the photo, and reshot them, put them straight into the computer, and fixed them up and touched them up. And
Jesus, great idea.
And to reconstruct parts of the 93 couch. Well, it's actually, if you have a macro lens, you'll get better images than if you try and scan an image. Because like you guys know, using a scanner, it picks up the material of the paper, and you'll get all the dot matrix and stuff, print on it and stuff, but rephotographing an image, because that's what they used to do. Pygmalion did that with all the Pink Floyd stuff back in the day. They would shoot Pink Floyd, they'd shoot the band members, they'd shoot the stuff they need, then they'd blow it up into like large format color photos, and they'd just get out a really, really sharp scalpel, X-Acto knife, cut everything out precisely, put it together, put that back up on the wall and reshoot it.
Just like that, then, yeah.
That was the pre-Photoshop method to do photo montage on all the old album covers, you know. Wow. So we never think about it, like, you know, because the digital technology's come along so much, it just makes it easy.
It was the Salvation cover you did, Steve. Was it just a submission for RT or something?
Yeah, so like my story isn't as exciting. It was just there was a competition on, and I just thought I'd enter it because like you know, hopefully like they'll get shared if best case scenario gets picked. But I did some artwork, and I kind of wanted to do something with a big harp anyway, and I was kind of like, well, it's like, I think it was a load of covers or something. I think that was what the actual album was people covering Cranberry songs, and it was a whole compilation album. Okay. So I tried to do something more just like, not generic, but like I was like, all right, I'll try to make a kind of Irishy looking album, and it was only after I'd done it, I was kind of like, this looks like it could be like promoting Guinness or something, you know.
I was thinking kind of it'd be a good postage stamp or something like that as well, you know, with the harp. It's cool. What about you, Ciaran? How's last year treating you? You were busy enough with bands and stuff.
Yeah, ever since COVID hit, I flourished.
Yeah.
I actually had a great time like over the past 2 years because like the lads were saying, you know, there's so much stuff that you put on the back burner for so long. And you sometimes feel you're never catching up with things. So like I was out of work. I was like, the office I was working in closed. So for literally about a year, I was just sitting around and I had all the time in the world to go through everything that I wanted to do, catch up with all types of things. So it was great. Like, I think the pandemic really badly hit people who didn't have hobbies. You know, people whose like lively, like whose lives revolved around like going out at the weekends and, you know, being part of whatever. Like, but I think people with hobbies just got deeper into them and, you know, you're just able to expand on it a bit more. So yeah, like there was tons of stuff I was putting off and I sat down and produced a lot of terrible work and then some all right stuff as well.
I just love, I don't know if the lads are aware that you might just tell them the story about the work you did with Grey Stag and then the phone call from Steve, was it? Or which one was it?
Yeah, I think they were just sending me messages through Facebook Messenger or whatever. But yeah, I think they had gotten in touch and asked me to do like a merch design for them. But yeah, I think it was like a day or two afterwards. They weren't sure. You know, we were just ironing out the details or whatever. But yeah, there was like a woods that I used to go to during the pandemic. It's just kind of, it was within the 5K limit or whatever. Like, so I used to just go down there and just hang out in the woods, basically, like walking around for inspiration and things, just for peace of mind as well, just to get away from everyone. But yeah, there was one day and I was there and I think it was Steve from Grey Stag. Yeah, he'd sent me a message just like finalizing the details. But like when I put my phone away, I looked up and there was a grey stag standing in the woods just looking at me. And it was just mental. Like, and I had my camera with me, like a DSLR camera, and I tried to get a photo, but he ran off through the woods. Like, but yeah, I just thought it was just such a weird coincidence. Like, very strange. It was cool though.
Yeah, imagine. Like, as well as that, the two of you collaborated with the Ashiri teacher there, and that was pretty cool. What was that like? Did you get, was it up to yourselves in relation, had you free reign in relation to design or?
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
What's your man that kind of organizes Dara? His name is?
Yeah, from Horrenda, yeah.
The mad thing about that was when it was started up, like I've seen a few people try to do this over the years where they're like, oh, we should get like a big collaboration album going. I've seen it like 2 or 3 times and it's usually like it starts up and then it just falls apart because too many people want to do too many different things. So fair play to like Dara for actually, like, he just was like, right, no, he set times and dates and he's like, this is when this all has to be done. This is when this all has to be done. And I remember I seen it pop up on Facebook somewhere and I was just like, oh, I'd love to get involved in the art. And I think might have been Colin Bolger was already involved maybe, and I think I'd spoken to yourself, Ciaran, about possibly doing like a collaboration image sometime or something.
Yeah.
And so it was really cool because I spoke to Colin about this as well. So it was the 3 of us ended up collaborating then. And I think we all kind of just decided amongst ourselves, I think, wasn't it? It was, I think Colin was kind of like the art director, kind of, wasn't he? He was kind of just like, right, keeping us on top of things. And you end up yourself, you're the illustrator then, and I kind of took on the graphic design role. So I ended up doing the logo and putting it all together. So I think Colin actually did the border, wasn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
And pretty much I think
it was great though, because like I think all of us went into it with like none of us wanted the limelight, you know. It wasn't like this is going to be my image or this is going to be whatever, and here I'm taking over or whatever. All 3 of us were like, no, you go ahead and do this. No, you do that. No, you do that. It's like until like someone had to just go like, all right, like this is how it's going to be, and like it came together really fluidly as well because there was no pressure, there was no hassle. Like,
that's pretty cool. So look, I'll just throw it out to you there. First of all, influence is an obvious question to ask you, so I kind of want to get it out of the way early. Growing up, had you specific artists, or what made you want to pursue your kind of art in particular way? Would it be Photoshop or just actually hand drawings and stuff? And if you want to take that?
Well, let's just start with Don Conroy and Mary Fitzgerald. Where would we be without them, like, you know? I actually asked Don Conroy multiple times on Facebook.
Grew up drawing the owls.
Yeah, I actually asked Don Conroy multiple times on Facebook to send me a WhatsApp photo because I'm friends with him. I was like, send me a headshot on WhatsApp because I actually want to turn him into an owl. You know, so just for man, you put Don Conroy in a death metal album cover for someone in Ireland, like really kind of, and it's like Don Conroy as an owl. That would just have such significance for people growing up in the 80s. For me, it wasn't Frank Frazetta. It was the He-Man box art from the 80s off the toys, and because that was influenced by Frank Frazetta. And I remember my uncle getting me into Whitesnake and just all that album artwork from the 80s. Seeing covers like Rush, and not even knowing what it is because you're a kid, but just going, oh, like that, you know?
Yeah.
Like Steve, I'm a bit older than the two of you, am I? I'm pure because I was born in 1980, so I remember seeing the first visuals of like MTV, and always been interested in graphic design. Also been very interested from a young age in very bad graphic design, as in when you didn't have Photoshop, but your local village or town would have horrible posters, and you're kind of going, what's that like, you know? And I've actually had
the power of the photocopier, huh?
Oh yeah, I've had discussions.
But you know the bad graphic design, or you'd see it in any town. Like even I live out in the countryside. Sometimes you'll see like little signs like where it's like, you know, eggs for sale. And I was like, I'd love to just go around and like design a poster and then just like stick it on top of it and run off and don't tell them.
Oh, you'd be the Robin Hood graphic designer. Yeah. There's every time before the lockdown, driving down to Clonmel with one of the lads who teaches with me. Now he did painting. He knows that he teaches graphic design with me, and we're looking at all the showband posters for the hotels. And I'm always going, Jesus Christ, the cringe of showband posters. The whole. We're not even talking good Big Tom album covers. We're looking at the cheesiest stuff. And he did explain.
Usually all they are is just a fucking photo with just the logo. I know, that's it, isn't it?
He did explain to me, like, you can't change that. And it'd be the same as some metal bands will do the opposite. Like, I love the pink unicorn t-shirt that just says death metal. But you can't change it because the demographic probably in their 60s and 70s understand that that's the artwork for their favorite music. So if you change that and you try and make it nice and change it up, they're not going to know that gig is for a Big Tom cover band or Jim Reeves special edition Saturday night thing, you know, like Thelma Mansfield on tour. They're not going to know it, you know.
The weird thing as well and all that stuff, sometimes there is like good elements in bad design, I think, or you can actually learn from.
Yeah, I have 8 of my mother's vinyl records in a drawer in Clonmel. So because I do layout for album cover design to teach my students how to do an album cover. And the project this year is you have to take a genre of music which they picked and you have to cross-pollinate and juxtapose it against an existing video game or a Netflix animated TV show, right? So they might take death metal and mix it with some mad cartoon, you know? But I give them the templates for a CD cover and a vinyl cover so they understand the basics of InDesign. And then the next project is actually action figure and toy packaging and game design packaging. So they have to design all the templates themselves. But when I'm showing them vinyl records, I take out my dad's Dolly Parton. And what else do I have? I have Jim Reeves, Chris Christopherson, and I have, his name fell out of my head. I have some Irish artists who are real kind of pre-Daniel O'Donnell.
Joe Dolan and those, like.
Not Joe Dolan, I can't remember his man's name now, but basically when they were going through their polo neck Beatles stage, so they had the Beatles haircuts with the polo necks, and you know when you see the memes, the murder memes, where your man's looking off into the distance with the American portrait, but then he's wearing the Kung Fu outfit faded in. Do you remember those ones? It's got that. He's sitting under a tree like this, all really pensive, and in the other photo, he's looking off in the distance with the polo neck. And my students they're all in their 1920 and they're laughing their asses off at this. And I was like, lads, that's pre-Photoshop design.
Yeah, but I mean, you only have to look at the scratch then to bring it back to being cool, which couldn't give a rat's that cover where they're all wearing the orange jumpers.
Do you know the death metal band, the Ned Flanders guys? Looking at the photos of them, you know.
I might imagine just some of the older stuff as well as how they did it. like, just even when you're saying about influences, it just popped into my head there. Like, I think one of the biggest influences I had early on as a kid was the old black and white King Kong movie. And like, my grandmother had recorded it on like video for me. So anytime I was over our house, I just watched it over and over. Like, and even I got it on DVD recently. I was watching it. I was like, some of the stuff I'm looking at, I was like, Jesus, how, you know, the part when he's like picking up the log and shaking them all off.
Yeah.
I was reading about how they did it, and it's like they basically animated King Kong obviously doing it, but then they had like a crane lift the log up, I think, and like it's actually projected. The animation was like projected on a big sheet behind it, and I was like, that's just deadly how they did that. Like,
and now they're doing that now with the Mandalorian. When you think about it, they've gone past green screen back to that technique.
Practical effects. Yeah, it's the same with like Dune as well. Like the way they're like shooting everything on location, no green screens.
But I love the elements. I've been down to the studio here in Troy Studios in Limerick, the Odyssey Studios here in Limerick, which is the special effects guys. And some of the guys who worked there started out in doing the practical effects for Dublin Comic Con, and they got into the cosplay and they learned about the silicone, the resin, and now they're supplying that stuff to the guys. The guys down below for Foundation, the Apple series, and I can say this because it's on YouTube. I had to sign an NDA for Disney when I walked in. They let me use the 3D scanner, the large format one, for some of my own work, because my own 3D scanner only does small objects. But they showed me the ships from Foundation, and they're basically 3D models in ZBrush by the concept artist, sent to Limerick, 3D printed like model kits, put together, painted by the lads, shipped over to Troy Studios, and filmed with practical effects, because they wanted the old school way of doing things. So practical effects came in massively in that. So I was just looking at these spaceships down below going, oh, it's the best toy shop ever. You know, and then one of the lads goes, there's the box now, prosthetic hands, and there's all these decapitated hands that they were used on Vikings and stuff. And I'm just going, people are like, how are you getting on down the studio? I'm just going, with these prosthetic hands, like in a big box, you know. It's brilliant, like, to see. I was very inspiring because to be able to talk to the students about, like, do you know that spaceship there? Yeah, that was made in Limerick and shot. There's the Odell factory. That's where they made that show, you know. Yeah, and, you know, Stephen, when we're in the other groups, because one of the groups myself and Stephen is run by Dean Samet. Now, Dean was in the metal scene doing artwork for years, and he runs this the third biggest Photoshop channel now on YouTube. And he's bringing in a girl from Newfoundland called Renee Robbins, and Renee shoots Phil Anselmo now. Like, she just recently did. So we're like, whoa, Phil Anselmo. And then we're like, and they're going, yep, there's see that old Dell factory there? I'm doing a selfie video while I'm walking down the back of the University of Limerick, and there's Dell now, and that's where they shot Foundation, you know, and just kind of like, it's so unassuming. Yeah. Look, you know, but that's one of the great things about those groups, actually, Stephen, wasn't it? Just meeting all those people. You know.
What about you, Ciaran? Influences?
Jesus, I don't know. Like, I'm kind of all over the map when it comes to, like, my background would have been fine art. You know, like I went to college, like, doing art and design and specialized in painting. So, like, from that perspective, like, one of my favorite artists ever is a guy called Ian Francis. He's a painter based out of Bristol, and like, his work is just, I can't, there's no way you can describe it really. It's like he paints kind of dream sequences and just like completely made up events. But like the references that he uses are just like, he'll take imagery from TV programs, like porn or anything, like, but he'll like make an image that looks like it's digitized. So you don't actually know what you're looking at or how he even started. He's a mixed media artist as well. So like, it looks like a digital image, but he's painted it. But in terms of like what I'm doing now as well, like I don't really know. You know, I kind of glean things off people here and there, and there's no one kind of major influence that I have. Because like I've been hopping between doing like the kind of simpler, more like cross-hatched or like stippled kind of dot work, and then like going back over to like traditional painting as well. Like I've done 2 album covers there in the past year for bands. I think one of them was released, the other one's still to come out. But yeah, I don't know. Like I jump between styles. I think like an awful lot.
But thematically, a lot of it is kind of pagan and kind of
occult kind of stuff.
Yeah.
A lot of it would be. And again, like that's just. I just got again, it was just more so during the pandemic. I just started reading a lot of different stuff like Manly P. Hall and like a lot of different books, like Damien, what was his name? Damien Eccles. He was part of was it the West Memphis 3 or something? He was like accused of murder and put on death row and went through like becoming a ceremonial magician while he was in prison and got released from death row, then wrote a book. So like I just kind of found all that really fascinating. I just kind of went a bit down looking through all the kind of occult stuff. But yeah, it's again, like there's no one fixed thing that I'd kind of be concentrating on. I kind of jump around a lot.
Well, that's good anyway, you know, that you're not confined to one, we'll say, team, or, you know, so people can approach you for various ideas.
Yeah, but at the same time, it is a bit difficult as well, because if you don't have a solid structure or style or whatever, like people can get lost. Like I like a lot of the stuff that I've done recently in the past year or 2 years, like I'm looking back at that now going like, I hate that. Like there's a lot of merch designs that I've done for bands that I'm like, I can't even look at it anymore. I'm just like, I know I'm better than that. Like you're only as good as the last piece you've done anyway. But like, I think you're always evolving as an artist. Like it doesn't matter how long you've been doing it. You're always like improving on your own style and how you go about doing things. So like, even just for a few months down the line, I'm like, Jesus, I could have done way better than that. And you know,
it strikes me as well, Steve, with you, what kind of techniques do you study and admire? It seems you're developing constantly as well.
I'd say with my style stuff anyway, 3 kind of biggest inspirations on me were, one was H.R. Giger. You know, everyone kind of nearly knows who he is. He designed Alien. And then there's Dave McKean, and he did a lot of like Fear Factory's album covers and Machine Head, stuff like that. And
did Dream Theater too, didn't he?
Yeah. Actually, there was an image I did recently for a Swedish band. I took a bit of inspiration from that, you know, where he has the kind of whole collage of all the photo faces.
Metropolis Part 2, yeah.
Yes. So I was wanting to do something like that. So I basically got the band, I think, wanted something to do with like serial killers and stuff. And so I spent ages just like finding loads of pictures of just, you know, crazy people, and basically made a collage of all that and kind of blurred them out because they didn't want it to be like, you know, like they're celebrating them or anything. Like, so it was one of those things where it's kind of a bit of a touchy subject in a way. So you're trying to make it like respectful in a way, I suppose. But yeah, then I think who's the other artist? It's Seth Serial Anton, his name is. I think he's the bassist out of Septic Flesh.
Oh yeah, he
does all their album covers and stuff. And how I found him was actually just one of my favorite bands, is Cybreed they're called, and he did their album covers as well.
Isn't he a minister as well?
I think
as in governmental,
something like that. He's
local council or something.
Yeah, but I love his artwork. It's just it's so bizarre. Like he does weird things with. Yeah. And you're like, oh, that's like just a paint splash or something coming out, but it looks like really horrible or something. And the same as Ciaran. I have loads of influences. Like I could go on about him for ages. Like I suppose the other 2 big ones would be I read the book Dune there when I was in college, and like that. After I read that was just like, Jesus, this is like a Bible for fucking ideas. Like, and then the other biggest influence on me would be the band Lordi.
Oh yeah, you've done a bit of work for them, yeah? Or was it just your
I've kind of done art based on some of their songs.
Okay.
They won the Eurovision in 2006, and they're one of these bands. They're really like cheesy, but I just love them. And like, it's even the singer of the band, like he does all their artwork, he does all the production, he records, he makes all the costumes on. I find it mental that he's able to do all that. And even like the last year they released, it was like 7 albums. So
Jesus Christ.
And they're my favorite band as well. So I'm like, 7 albums to listen to. I was like, oh Jesus, this is
7 albums.
Yeah. And I was like, at first when I heard that, I was like, this is going to, I was hoping, I hope they're not all crap or like just mundane or anything, but they kind of range from like it's like, this is some of their best music they've ever recorded, to like just 1 or 2 albums where I'm just like, that's not really my thing, but it's kind of what they intended to do, because they were kind of trying to do a lot of different styles, so it was kind of like naturally going to happen that they'd get that way. And even just, it was the band Lordy, like they have that's, you know, my art page name is the Iron Parasite, and that actually comes from a Lordy song. It's one of the lyrics, like, so they're like one of my biggest inspirations. Like,
so to know the way Ken, you were saying about He-Man, like, so is some of your work kind of informed by certain concepts or themes from your childhood, maybe, or is it just that?
I think I've kind of come to a stage, because I cross-pollinate between metal, and a lot of the stuff I'm doing at the moment is pop culture. Like, I actually got to do I did the book cover for Mark Taylor's autobiography. He's the guy who created He-Man.
Yeah, wow.
So I did his cover. I'm involved in a new action figure toy line with Mark passed away last month. But I'm actually involved in redesigning one of his last prototypes for a toy line with his wife.
Is that Battletech, is it?
No, I work with Battletech as well. I work with Catalyst Games doing artwork for Battletech. They're in Seattle. And yeah, it's a lot of pop culture stuff at the moment. Like, I'm rebranding PowerCon, which is a toy. It's a toy convention in the States. It actually was the He-Man convention, but it's evolving into something bigger. So I've been working on a rebrand on that recently. And yeah, I do a lot of pop culture stuff. It just started to happen when I was doing my own stuff, and then I got approached by a Spanish He-Man magazine because I used the pop culture 80s stuff, like building models and then 3D scanning them, or messing with a lot of mixed media with digital media. And I use my favorite things to learn a technique. So if I wanted to learn how to cast stuff in silicone, I was casting my action figures. I wanted to learn macro photography. I was taking my toys out to the woods, lighting it, using LED lights versus flashes, action figures, stuff like that. But then the experiments became the work, and people wanted it for different reasons. So, yeah, I've just been using like broken toys and different things. And I remember seeing a lot of it in Photoshop magazines a long time ago, guys using miniatures. And I always was influenced by the miniature design for Weta Workshop for Lord of the Rings, and of course Star Wars and ILM, and how they use miniatures. And myself and Stephen do what's called a lot of kit bashing. And kit bashing now is where you just take random objects in 3D and you make something new from them. Okay. And kit bashing in the old days was basically when they wanted to make ships for Star Wars, they bought loads of model kits, took them apart and saw what would fit together, and just conceived ideas from that.
Mm. I don't know. Have you ever seen there's an Instagram? He's on Instagram, but the artist name escapes me. He's a dude who like takes photographs of like everyday objects, like hair dryers or like just things like that, or toasters or whatever, and then he'll redesign it as a concept into like a space freighter or something like that.
I've seen some of that, but I don't know what it is. But
yeah,
that's the great thing.
Really interesting, actually.
Yeah, taking random objects and trying to make something new out of it. You know.
Yeah.
Like in relation to your material, Ciaran, like I think the lads are more advanced in their pursuit with using kind of new technology. Are you more old school as such? Would you like to kind of?
Yeah. I just like pen and ink, pencil, pen and ink, basically. That's basically what I do. I try and do as much of it that way as possible, but like every now and then I'll use like vectors or like some certain brushes and stuff like that, just to put elements in behind, and I color things digitally. That's pretty much it. But I generally would like work with paper and then scan it in at like 600 dpi, and then just like get to work and cleaning it up in Photoshop.
Yeah. So like, do you know the way it's so easy nowadays for bands to record albums at home and stuff? Is the digital artwork technology really kind of user-friendly these days, or is it actually way more technical, lads?
It's just a life stage, because I'm thinking of doing a PhD on it called the virtual instant satisfaction versus the virtual patience. I'm sure the other lads will have this as well, where someone will go, sure, I could just do that on a filter on Instagram. And you're like, you know, like Photoshop is one button. That's what they think, you know, and
the make art button.
Yeah, make art button. And we have to put up with the new AI systems where people can just like pick 3 or 4 images on Google and it makes surreal art. Or people like some of us in the groups, there's other countries where there's great designers, but they have a lower cost of living and they are on forums like Fiverr where they'll do your logo for €5. And, you know, you're up against all of that as well. And it is because people go, sure, you just did that on a computer, you know, and they don't realize that there's money, there's equipment, but there's 20 years, well, for me, over 20 years of experience with different, like, because I studied in art college in Limerick, I did print and I also did a degree in sculpture and a master's in tech in interactive media. So I paint my own textures on by hand. My clouds are still painted on huge acrylics and photographed. So you need to know how to use camera. You need to know how to use, you know, and then translating 3D models from a scanner to like that was. This has been painted in Procreate over 3D models to look like it was hand painted, you know? So there's a lot of reversing of technology to make technology look like it's not technology.
Yeah.
And, you know, and Stephen's last cover there for Masterpieces, if you've seen that. How long did that take you, Stephen? 6 months?
I'd say like actual time, like usually when I do artwork, it takes me about 5-6 hours to do, but I think I spent like 3 or 4 times the amount of time on that one. But I had like started like sketching that like a year previously and just let it sit there, and then it was just cut. Like there's loads of elements of like it's all this like ornate stuff. So I was like, I bought this like photo pack online of all these. It was just someone taking thousands of photos of like ornate stuff, and like, they're obviously in like one of these like mansions, and they just took photos of everything. So I
went to a thrift shop.
Do you remember? Do you remember when like Facebook was down one day? It was like it was off for like 24 hours, and I was working on some stuff, and I was like, I can't actually do any work because I can't get back to him to ask him. So I started I was cutting these out for like 5 hours. I was just sitting there like cutting them all out, all these little bits, and then you know I had all the bits cut out. Then that took ages, and then just putting them all together. Say like kit bashing in a way with photos. Like
I spent 10 months on Morbid Angel.
Yeah, that's but like I remember the reason I cut them out was like usually when I make an artwork, I kind of just start with new elements, but then I was just like I want to do more stuff with these, so I was like I may start cutting bits out and saving them that way. Now in the future, if I ever want to do something with ornate things, I was like I should have a whole like
you never throw them away.
Whole folder of stuff cut out.
Like 14 terabytes of unfinished Photoshop layered work that I always go back to for someone else.
I'm always using it. What's great about Photoshop, and this is what's so handy about using Photoshop, is sometimes you'll have like a band will ask you, it's like, oh, can you do like an image? And they'll send you like one of your old artworks, and you're like, can you do it something like that? And you're like, I still have that Photoshop file, so you can you can do the artwork, and you can just literally like grab a load of the layers, and it's like you know, you chip off like nearly 2 or 3 hours worth of work because you're like, well, you wanted that color and that look, so you can kind of like apply a lot of it. You do have to like reconfigure them and all that, all the photos sometimes.
What's nice about what you just said is when people come to you for that piece of work because they want your style. And I don't know what it's like for you, Ciaran, because you're more into fine art stuff, but when you get into Photoshop, and this comes back to Richie's question about the tech, is when you get into Photoshop first, if you want to work with your local bands and stuff, what happens first is people go, you're good at Photoshop, aren't you? And you're like, yeah. And you go, well, we want to sound like Oasis, so can you make us, you're good with a camera, you make us look like Oasis and make the cover look like Oasis. And for ages then, you're just the jack of all trades because you're good at Photoshop, making bands look like the band they want to be. But then eventually someone comes along and you're doing your own stuff in your own style. Like Stephen was just saying there, cutting stuff up and making your own experiments. I know I spent a lot of lockdown doing that, just going back to the drawing board, trying to find a personal style, upgrade it, come bring in new artists, new influences, new techniques. And I remember it was actually Steve Tucker from Warfather, because he was living in Cork for a while and he met my buddies who were in UCC and they showed him my website. He's the first person ever to ask me for my own stuff in 2011. He goes, no, I want your style. He didn't go, you know, these guys look like this, make us look like that. Do you know what I mean? Has that happened to you guys? Have you that experience of people wanting to be emulating somebody else, and because you got the tech, they think that that's what you do?
What's funny is like sometimes when I get commissions, like sometimes I'll to get a better idea of what they want me to do, I'm like, can you like send me some artwork, like even my artwork or just anything you like, just send me like a load of art that you like the look of, not for me to like copy art, but sometimes they'll send you like 10 pictures and you're like, right, in about 7 of these pictures, they're black and white, and then another 7, they have like a butterfly in it. And it's like, do you want a black and white picture of a butterfly? And you're like, yeah. Sometimes it's hard for them to just communicate it, but like I did have one recently. It was funny. Someone had sent me your art, Ken. I was like, but like they had sent me a few like different ones, but like one of them I was just sitting there. I was like, that's one of Ken's.
I have to send you a picture I took in class, Stephen. Do you know the Death Book, the heavy music artwork Death Book? Yeah. I gave one of my students who's into death metal that book for his album cover, and when I talked past him, he was looking at your work.
Yeah. So
I was there. I took a sneaky photo over his shoulder of my student in class researching you for his project.
Jesus Christ.
That's good.
But I mean, financially, investing equipment to get that artwork out, how crazy can you go with it?
Here's the funny thing is sometimes you end up laughing at yourself doing it because you're like, all right, you know, I need a good computer and I need a drawing tablet and I need the software and I need a good digital camera, and you're spending like, you know, hundreds or even thousands of euros, and then you're like, right, and what you know, I'm doing all this, and it's like to make it look like a drawing on paper, and you're like, I should have just fucking got a box.
If only I stayed in life drawing instead of being hung over from Costello's on a Tuesday morning, I wouldn't have to spend 10 grand making it look like a drawing.
Sometimes you end up like doing stuff where it's like when you step back and look at it, you're like, I could have done this very cheaply. It kind of depends. Like
honestly, that's why I just stay doing this. Like I could go down that route, like, and I have tried. Like I love messing around with Photoshop. I've done a lot of digital artwork, but there's something just about the physical aspect of it that I just love. I think it's just in the creation of the work itself. Like the work is almost like the creation itself, and once I'm done, I'm just like, okay, on to the next thing. But like I know, like with digital art as well, there's so many possibilities. But like the lads were saying as well, you know, you're in an age now where years ago you would have had to learn all that stuff like day by day, whereas you could sit down now look up a tutorial on YouTube to how to do something really specific. And then, you know, you can build on that up until you're a master at your craft, you know?
Yeah. I tell my students that I'm like, what age are you? And they're said I'm 20. And I said, well, I'm 41. You are technically 15 years ahead of me, at least, in experience of this work. And they go, what do you mean? He goes, well, when I was 20, I didn't have YouTube. I didn't know what a Wacom tablet was. We had the old 98 Macs in college, and you had to queue for those. Yeah. I discovered Photoshop on Erasmus in Sweden. And I actually only went to Sweden because it was the only country I could find where all the death metal was. So, you know, I wanted to be just hanging out where in Flame, and I saw loads of bands and stuff. But one of the guys sat me down, and I had an acrylic painting done of a dragon, and he scanned it into Photoshop and showed me how to change colors, and that's blew my mind, you know. But a kid now will go, Argos, drawing tablet, $70, cheap laptop, or some of my students have the iPad Air, which is £600 with Procreate, and they have that in class. And they've been watching tutorials and Facebook and YouTube and Twitch, everything since they were 3 or 4. Yeah, tutorials. You know, I had a student 2 or 3 years ago, and when she started first year, she had 179,000 followers. That went up to 250,000 by second year, and now works for Marvel.
Jesus Christ, it's insane.
You know, when she was doing creative media, and some of them are just phenomenal for their age. You know, it's kind of sickening. But
then you have the likes of me, then that qualified as a graphic designer in 1998. Myself and another guy called Lar Fraser.
Did you?
He's
didn't know that.
Yeah, did it in Dublin, and the two of us left qualified. Lars and a load of fucking bands in Dublin. He's a well-known figure. I'm sure all we did was talk about music and did fucking as many CDs as we could. And we did, and that's what you're saying, we had to use some Macs and stuff. So when we graduated then, trying to get work was nearly impossible and the pay was shit as a graphic designer. So I landed a part-time job with Guinness's, and there was around 8 or 9 graphic designers with that were way different level to me. And that contract ended, and then I fucking ended up in Lisney as a graphic designer, and all I was doing was fucking putting houses onto frames and putting the prices up, and I just left it. You know,
in Quark Express.
Yeah, exactly. Quark Express. Fuck me. That's it. That was it. I could never afford the equipment rang after that because I had to get work.
Yeah. One of my lecturer buddies, who's been in the art college for 30 years, told me he was doing graphic design in Limerick. His wife was teaching in graphic design in the art college. He goes, would you come in and teach a class next week? But in Quark, he went to phone a guy out near Shannon Airport who had the tutorials on VHS. And he went and borrowed them and took them home and learned Quark over the weekend so he could go in and teach them on the morning inside the art college. And we're there going, a student going, Ken, that technique there you did with subtools and ZBrush, I found a guy who's better graph on my iPad. And you're just like, oh, that's great, Jack. Can you show me that? And you come up here. But no, I actually do that. I get them to go, you show us. It's called Flip Classroom. It's great. They do all the work, you know? But I love that Quark story though. It's VHS. That's just insane.
Funny enough, like I studied graphic design as well. I had initially gone to art college and I didn't really like art. I did like an art portfolio course and I loved that. When I went into art college, I was just like, this is crap. It wasn't what I wanted to do at all. Because it was more the kind of fine art where they're just like throwing stuff together. But what was good was I dropped out of college and then I did like a 10-week Photoshop course. And then that's like what sent me on to doing graphic design. And then I studied graphic design up in Waterford. And it was the same thing. We had a class where we actually had to do Quark Express. Funny enough, like, and I can't remember why they were teaching it, like, but we only had one class of it, like, or a few classes of it or something. And it was just like, everyone in the class was like, yo, I'd been doing Photoshop for a few years before I went there and all, and using InDesign and all that kind of stuff. And I was just like, what the hell is this?
It's like going back to the dark room when you're used to digital photography, you know?
Yeah. It is kind of cool doing that though, because like, I majored in photography and all, and like, so we actually did do a bit of the film, developing film and all that. So it's interesting to know the kind of history of all that stuff as well.
It really does open, gives you a full appreciation because I studied black and white photography. There was no digital when I started our college in 98. Well, we didn't have the cameras. It was just too expensive, you know. Yeah. Nobody would have had them back then. I did all the filming. And when you do get into digital, have an SLR, it really makes you appreciate like how it helps you with your work now, you know?
Yeah.
But then it comes back to the same point Richie made about Photoshop because everyone's just out now with a phone just going, should I do it myself?
Yeah.
You know?
Mental.
Yeah. It's funny though, you know.
Go on, sorry.
You're just on about like college as well. Like one thing I was shocked at, like when I went into art college, was the amount of people who couldn't draw. Like they just did not have the basic, like honestly, they didn't have the basic skills involved in like, just being aware of, you know, objects or whatever, like, or just able to put things down on paper. Like the amount of people who came out still unable to draw, but they were able to talk about art, and like they were the people who succeeded because they were like, they could literally just like fuck something onto a piece of paper and stand in front of a class for like 20 minutes explaining what it is and why it's important and how you should look at it and how you should feel and all that. And I'm just like what the fuck? Like, you know, it's nothing. You know,
you just explained the reason why I fucking left our
college. Yeah. Like I got so disillusioned. Like I went through with it like for 4 years, like, and graduated and everything. But like I still have that same relationship where like I know, like, it's all subjective. Everything, it's all completely subjective. What you like, someone else isn't gonna like. Blah blah blah. Yeah. Like there's the whole modern art. Like some of it, I can't get my head around because if you need someone to explain to you why it's good, then I don't see the point.
Oh yeah,
of it.
that is not
anyway,
good.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it's funny what you said there because I was approached after a CEO day showing off how to use Photoshop. I was approached by a couple of departments who were kind of eventually they've come around to say, look, is there ways that people can learn to teach Photoshop to art teachers in the Leaving Cert? Because more and more students are coming in with this, and they want Procreate, and they're the artists of the future. And if they come in and they're saying that all their influences are coming in from pop culture, my students never seen Forrest Gump, so that makes me very old. But all their influences are from pop culture now, right? And I came through that same experience of not liking art college for at the time for the reasons that you just explained, that someone who doesn't have a technical skill but can talk about art is getting the better marks. I did have a great kind of take the chip off the shoulder moment when I was in Limerick, when one of my pieces was, I don't know what happened, but something I did was quite successful for some reason. And I was in a bar, and a guy who came up to me who got like a distinction, a H1 top marks out of the art college, but I'd never seen him do art. He was working in a bookshop, and he was a bit drunk, and he was really just rude and arrogant about about whatever I did. And I just turned around and go, fuck off, you work in a bookshop. I'm not failed art college, but I'm doing it, so just fuck off. I got rid of all my angst, and now I work there.
I think most of the people I went to art college with, because like one of my best friends, he actually finished it. Like I remember when he finished art college, he hated doing art for a while. Like he does it a bit now. He's actually we make Ciaran. He's in the band 12 Gauge Outrage.
Ah, yeah, you've did stuff for them. Yeah.
So I went to art college with him, like, and he fair play to him. Like he stuck out finishing it. Like, but I'm not really aware of any people that did finish the art course that are doing art now.
Yeah, like in my painting class, there was
that's what I'm doing now. It's weird. Like
there were 20 people in my. There were 20 people in my art class, like in the painting class, and we were told one day they were like one of you, like statistically one of you will make it as an artist, the rest of you will not. Like they just told us that flat out, and they were right. I think there's like one girl who was in that class is now like in London working full time as a painter, because like if you're going to go down that route of like the whole, like as a painter, let's say, like you're going to be broke for years, like. You're going to have to invest all of yourself into it, all of your time, all of your energy, all your passion, like everything. Put yourself into it, be your art, and your art will be you, whatever. Like, but like, no, not everyone can do that. I couldn't do that. Like, I tried. Like, I've fallen in and out of like going back to painting and just like taking months of a break, and then that extends into years, and then I'll go back and I'll like have a burst of creativity, and then just like same thing again, just a lull.
Well, at the end of the day, whether you're doing art or if you're like, you were talking to Olin 2 weeks ago from Abaddon and Carnet, I'd be talking to Mick Carey. Mick Carey will describe the joy and passion of playing guitar or writing a new riff the way I will talk about discovering a new technique in Photoshop. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, it's what is the spark of joy in what you're doing, and just unfortunately there's methods of breaking that out of you where you just don't come back from it. But I really do, as someone who teaches in art college, think that is definitely changing. I've seen massive leaps in just an openness and creativity recently in the last 10 years, where it's great to be teaching people and young people who have more information. Like I would have never thought to turn around to one of those type of lecturers you're talking about, Ciaran, who just kind of breaks your soul and turn around and go, who the fuck is that person to judge me? And then you Google them and find their website and go, look at the shit they're putting out. Like, we would never have done that. But now my students can go and look at Stephen's website. They can look at mine when it's finished. And they will challenge me, and I love that. I think it's brilliant because I'm like, that's ballsy. I like that, And
it's funny, actually, when you're just on about like Mick Carey being able to describe a riff to you, and it, like, I will always equate like music and art. They like, they're two things that are like so compatible. They go together. Like they fall into each other's worlds like so easily. Like in the same way that, like I was just saying, you could be successful. You could be doing something you love, like artistically, like as an artist, and then you could take someone else who's has the skills, has the know-how, but they're working in advertising, let's say, like they're putting all the creative creativity into like making something that is completely joyless to them. The exact same way that you could have a musician who's like writing original music, loving life, and then you've got someone who's in a wedding band who just hates their life but like loves the money. You know, it's the same thing.
I actually worked in Kildare Village for a year doing the graphic design there. And it wasn't my type of work at all, right? And it was corporate design, but it was good money. But what I do like to tell my students about that whole experience, because it's great to be able to teach that experience, because they're young, they're romanticizing the idea of working as an artist in the real world, and be able to say, lads, you could have a high-paid job, but if you don't like it, you're going to spend it all on liquor, drugs, or therapy just to try and get through your weekend, you know? And we all know someone who does that, you know, who hates their job and they'll spend the whole weekend finding ways to forget about it, you know?
Yeah.
But it's a broken happy.
It's a great relationship, though, for those that love music, because inevitably they will love art as well. They will fixate on the latest album. They will talk about their first album that they held in their hand, which for me was Tin Lizzy, and looking at Jim Fitzpatrick's artwork.
Yeah.
You know, you've got the Derek Riggs and Iron Maiden. I mean, there's an amazing association with music, and particularly I would say the heavy metal community as well, in relation to album art and how an album should look, how it should sound, looking at the visual product on the front cover, you know.
And it is great when you work. I find very inspiring when you work with a band, like when Stephen's saying there, and we were discussing bands coming to you for your style, but sometimes a band will come to you and they'll have a brief, and that will challenge you to do something you've never tried to accomplish in your own time or your own personal work. And that gets very exciting then as well, you know? You know, or the project that you've always wanted to do will come along, or a band will come along. And I'm totally name dropping, but when Morbid Angel happened, I was like, Jesus, this is fuck. What am I supposed to do here? You know? And that's why it took 10 months, because I don't know how many freaking drafts. And I remember, and it was Mick.
Can you remember actually, Ken, what the brief was with Morbid Angel? Did they give you lyrics? Did they give you a theme or what? Or?
The brief was, it was going to be a K because they go alphabetically. And it was going to be a red cover to something to do with a city. And it ended up being Kingdom Sustained. But Mick Carey, I told Mick, I'm working for a big band. Mick was working in Shoppentown, and he knew, because I talked to him about Steve Tucker and Warfather, and he'd give me a bit of tips and stuff. He knew straight away who I was talking about. Mick did. He just went, it's Morbid, isn't it? And I was like, shh. Right? So anyway, Mick came outside of his work and had a fag, and he basically went, right, he knew Trey Azagot inside out, right? And the best bit, and the guys will get this as designers, the best bit he told me is, wait till he gives you his thank you list. 5 pages of thank yous. Chun-Li from Street Fighter 2, the guy who made his BMX, his favourite amp. Just the most random of, like we talked about, he thanked every single influence. So you had all the lyrics, you had the paragraphs from the new drummer, maybe that much from Steve Tucker, and then 5 pages of Trey Azagot trying to thank everyone before he put the sponsors in. That's why just 10 months and 10 pages of art. But
Jesus Christ.
Well, I did a full 10 panels because the conversations just, I thought I was going to do a cover. I did the full 10 panels of the demon coming out of the ground and walking across the landscape till on the back cover he's gone. So it was like an animated flip book. That was the idea. And one of the songs, the 5th song, I don't even remember the real name, The Architects of something, because I had only the project titles, but the lyrics actually just serendipitously were exactly what was happening with the narration of the front cover. And it was just based on conversations with Stephen and Trey and emails. And when it all came together, it was just like just mind blowing. And that was the biggest challenge. And looking back, you're kind of going, the amount of skills I learned, because when they said, do you want to do the cover? You're not going to go, I'm sorry, I'm not skilled enough to do that. You're going to go, yes, I'll do that. And then you go learn the skills, you know? So that's what happens, you know?
Steve,
I have a very similar thing.
Kieran, go on, yeah. Sorry.
No, sorry. I was just going to say like that. I think I mentioned it earlier, but like this time I will not name any names, but like there's been a good few covers that I've done recently where the band will be like, they'll have a very specific brief, and I'll take it one direction, and then they'll be like, no, how about you change it to this, and it ends up being a piece of work that I do not like at all, like, but they love it. and like I'm almost ashamed to like put my name to it sometimes. I'm like, I don't want this to be seen, like, but they're like, I fucking love it or whatever. Like, so it's a bit weird like that when you're trying to balance like your vision versus someone else's vision and like the output and the outcome. Yeah, it's just really weird. And there's like some bands that will like, they'll be like, just do whatever you want. Like we've no brief. We'll just, here's the lyrics, here's whatever, some reference imagery, but like it's entirely up to you. And then you come back with something for them and they're like, nah, that's not at all what we want. Like, but you didn't want anything. Like, you know, it's mad like trying to balance that kind of thing.
The hardest people to work with are people doing their first demo, their first EP or their first album, because they are so into the vision of who they want to be. They're so passionate and they take so much control over the work. And then you get someone like who's been doing it for 20 years, like and then they just go, here's the brief, and you do it, and they go, that's great.
Yeah.
Spot on. Cheers.
Yeah.
You know,
one thing I was hearing about, just, you know, when you actually do a job like that, and you're looking at it, you're like, oh, I hate this. I only had a conversation with someone about this the other day, where it's like, you might hate it, but if they like it, you've done your job. Like that's what they hired you to do. So it's kind of like, yeah, well, it's success in that way, but you do want to love your own art even when you do something.
Steve, do you remember a guy on the community of metal designers who came up and he wanted someone to do something so disgustingly visceral that I think it was even the artist from Cannibal Corpse said no?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, this guy came along and he approached me about it at one stage because I said, "What's it about?" I was curious. And then when he said it to me, I was like, I was a new father and happily in a relationship, and he wanted something like this pregnant woman bursting open and the fetus crawling across, and it was on a lovely beach with this disgusting scene happening. And I was like, yeah, well, I said, Joe, I'll reach out to one of the lads I know who might be able to get you an artist. I definitely wasn't going to do it, but just to find out that guys who do that visceral gore art didn't even want to do it was just like, that's just mental, you know? Actually, one of the nicest guys to talk to, apart from Dean Salmon I mentioned earlier, he's done artwork for Stephen King book covers, and he's just in the know in the whole industry. But I don't know if you got to talk to him, Stephen, but Dusty Peterson, who's done loads of stuff with Lamb of God.
Yeah. Oh, some of his art is just, I was only saying
Cloak and Demon stuff is just brilliant. Like.
Yeah, he put one up one day, and I was looking at it, and I was like, it's actually like nearly turning my stomach. But like it's actually how good the image is in a way. It's like it's so disgusting. It's like how
was it the one of the demons gently stroking a wall made of eyes and he's got eyes all over his back? Yeah.
I was just like, nah, it's all the holes in his back.
Yeah, his translucent skin is creepy as hell, like, you know.
Yeah.
But and do you know what his main job is then? He's doing the trading cards for WWE. For wrestling.
Yeah.
You know? So
and how do you feel then, lads, as artists, about, we'll say, bands that will go into Pinterest and find these random, like there's loads of art out there for sale for pittance? And
yeah, the Fiverr mentality, like,
how does that, you know, because it does happen a fair bit. I've noticed anyway that a lot of bands won't pay the artists in Ireland, for example, and they'll go abroad or just go through Pinterest and find images there that they'll pay fuck all for. And
so if they're come here, at the end of the day, one of my favorite quotes from an artist is Android Jones. He's a digital artist, and he said, he said once in a tutorial lecture, he said, if it's not a hell yeah, it's a fuck no. Right? No grey areas when you're trying to make decisions. And if a band is going to go on Pinterest and they're going to do that, they don't have the respect, then you just don't want to work with them. Don't waste your time. Because as most of the guys know, probably, and I've talked to the big guys about this, metal art is about the passion. It's not about a paycheck. There were not the Drew Struzans who got $5,000 back in 1970, whatever, to do the Alice Cooper album cover. Those days are gone because there's enough people out there doing Pinterest and Fiverr and Instagram filters, and we're in this for love.
You can tell where the passion's gone into a piece. You know, you can tell immediately by looking at it, and then you can see other bands who are like, they just don't give a fuck. They're just like, whatever, we need something for a cover, so we'll just take this or whatever. Yeah. That's going to reflect on the audience as well. Like someone like me, I'm very critical when it comes to like looking at artwork for bands. Like I'll either listen to them or not listen to them based on whatever the image is like. A lot of the time, not all the time, but like, there's certain bands where you just look at it, you're just like, what the fuck were you thinking? Like,
It's like, when guys we know that you talk to, Richie, who are passionate about their music and they sell a bit of merch at a gig and they have a couple of bucks extra to spare, where does that go? You're going to find that Mick Carey has a brand new BC Rich or something, or he'll kill me for saying BC Rich because it's probably a Flying V at this stage. But he's look at my new guitar that I got because I love what I do and I had a couple of extra bucks. That's what myself and Stephen kind of do. We go. I went to a show in Germany and I sold a load of my prints to the He-Man fans and I bought myself an iPad. Yeah. To do my work, I
do think though as well when it comes to all that stuff with the interesting, like at the end of the day, there are artists that are on Fiverr and then you can hire them to do an album cover for a Fiverr, but like. That's all they'll ever be. It's Fiverr artists. Whereas if someone really wants your artwork, they'll be like, I want Ken Goldman's artwork. They'll hire you to do it. And not only that, I was saying it to someone on that community of metal designers page one day, because someone he was charging like a lot less, and like I was like for a logo design, and I was like I do logo designs, and I was like I charge this much amount, and I was like in the time it takes me to do one logo. You'd have to do 10 logos to make that same amount of money. I know it's not about the money, but
I remember seeing
just the workload. I was like, well, why
do you remember seeing some of the younger guys? I remember seeing some of the younger guys. There was a while there where on this group, they're like, "Oh, guys, it's great. I'm booked up for the year." I'm like, "Yeah, but if you're only charging 70 quid to some young fella to do his album cover, and you're booked up for the year." How much money do you actually have if this is your main job to actually put food on your table and pay your rent? And like, I'm just very fortunate. I have a full-time job and I teach, love what I do. I love what I do. And it all rolls around into the same thing. And not a lot of people can, I'm just very lucky in that. But there's guys out there and they're like, oh yeah, I'm booked up. I have 70 bands this year. And I'm kind of, yeah, but is that actually sustainable? And are you getting the monetary respect for your work? If you want to be known,
you have 70 bands, but you're probably going to get €700 because you're doing them all for a tenner.
Exactly, yeah. That's not even enough to buy to pay your Photoshop subscription professionally for a year. Or
there you go.
Like it's €700 a year to pay for Adobe as a professional. There you go. And because it's subscription based now, you get all your updates. Some of the software, like some of the 3D software I have, can go up to $2,000 to buy, and higher and higher. And that's where people need to respect it as well, because if they go, but that's only 2 or 3 buttons, or you can do that on Instagram, then when you're talking about Pinterest, like if that's the first conversation you're going to have, then don't waste your time.
And not only just what you were saying earlier, Ken, as well, is like some of these people as well, like if they came to you and tried to haggle you down to like, oh, can you do it for this? They're always the people that like they're the most hassle as clients. Yeah. Like that one of the best album covers I've done for someone was that Swedish band Sugar, and they literally like, I was like, this is how much I charge, and they're like, cool, and they just sent it to me, and I was like, deadly, and I was like, what do you want as the artwork? And they're like, they had this idea of it was like a biomechanic kind of Vitruvian man. And I was like, I sent them a sketch and they're like, yeah, cool. And I was like, sent them a more finalized artwork. I was like, do you want me to change that? And no, that's perfect, thanks.
The amount of memes I think we've all shared, the amount of memes we've shared about that, showing a client who's like 27 emails, $350, a band, $60,000, one email and a thumbs up,
Yeah. I think one thing I've really learned to stop doing as well, like I used to see people posting in like Facebook groups, like the Doom groups or whatever, going like looking for an artist, and there'd be loads of people tagging everyone or whatever. Every now and then I'd jump in and I'd be like, send them a message and say, if you want to have a look, here's some sample stuff that I've done before. And you get locked into a conversation and they're like, can you send a sketch? And I'm like, okay, like I'll send you a sketch, but after that we're going to start talking money or whatever. And they just lead you down this fucking rabbit hole of just like, oh, can you change this? Can you change that? I'm like, I'm not changing anything until we have some sort of agreement. And then you're basically doing work for free for them. And then it's happened to me once before where like the person has given the idea that I've done to another artist who's done it for cheaper or whatever.
My anecdote to my students about that is like, I walk in when they're all in first year and go, has anyone got paid to do artwork? Or have you done a commission for someone? And they go, oh yeah, I have. And I go, is there any chance you designed a tattoo for a friend? And a lot of them go, oh yeah. Did your friend pay you for doing the tattoo? No. Did they pay the tattoo artist? Yeah. So the tattoo artist got paid for your artwork, but you didn't. And you go, shit, I never thought about that. You're like, there you go. You know?
Yeah. So, I mean, for people that are looking in here, I'll just go clockwise there, maybe starting with you, Ciaran. How do you price your work? I mean, there's cost of material, the size of your artwork, the hours.
Honestly, I don't know. It depends on the artist as well. For a lot of times, like I've done some stuff for, let's say, like Ken was saying earlier, bands doing their very first release or something like that. Like if I know that they are doing something like that, I know what it's like to be in a band.
Yeah.
And I know how money works. Like when it's like 4 different people involved, they've all got 4 different financial situations, whatever. Like I think the lowest I've ever done was I did, and this is actually ridiculous saying this, I did like an album cover, a logo design and a merch design for €300 for like a band, which is kind of ridiculous in a way. There's 4 in the band, like.
Yeah, if a band can't pay you 50, 60 quid each, like that's not fair, you know?
Yeah. But like, I think at the time I was just like, I'll do it or whatever. Like, and I didn't spend too much time on it either because I was like pretty stringent with the amount of time I was going to put in for that amount of money. You know, I was like, like €300 does sound like a lot, but like for the amount of work you're putting in, it's not really like, you know, you're spending hours and hours just sitting there, just going over stuff and reworking it or whatever. But, I do tend to keep my work low because I just, like the price low because I don't know, like, I don't really feel like it is a really tough thing to do when you're an artist, is putting a price on your own work. Especially if it is something that you enjoy doing as well, because you almost feel guilty. You're like, you shouldn't be charging too much for it.
Yeah.
But like, I think as time goes on and there's more demand for your work, obviously, like you're gonna up the price. Like, but for me, I try and keep it low enough,
and
like low enough for people to be able to.
I suppose another factor there that you're not saying is if you know the band themselves. Yeah. Can lads get mate rates?
If they ask for it, then that's kind of if you know them slightly and they ask for mate rates because you go, oh, but you're from Limerick too or something, then that's a warning straight away. That's a red light.
There you go. Yeah.
You know, but like that, if you have a young band, one of my mates here in Limerick, Tom Collins, he's just this legendary sign writer, and I love working with him on stuff. Hand-painted signs for businesses, right? And he just telling me there over Christmas that his son is in the band, he's getting into the rock and stuff. And I was like, I said, if his band ever needs an album cover, you come knock it to me, right? I have no problem doing that for nothing, because I just want to help out a young band because I know what it's like. You know, they want to spend all their money on their gear, you know, buying up their drums and their guitars. And he was telling me stories about, you know, trying to borrow drum kits between bands because only one fella has the kit, like, because that's all he can afford. And like it's been a couple of years since I've worked with because I'm teaching now full time, and like I've been a dad for the last 4 years. So Morbid Angel finished just as that began. But even back then, if the label is involved, if there's a label involved, you can talk properly with an agent. If it's just the band, like Ciaran said, they're keeping it low. If they are local, if you know the circumstances, that all comes into play.
Yeah,
and if they can respect,
that's good to hear.
Yeah, but if they can respect your timeline as well, like there's one thing is getting really good at what you do, so you can do it fast. But someone going, sure, you're able to do that in about 10 seconds.
Yeah,
and you're like,
I think one of the most important.
It's going to take you 10 years to be able to
learn how to do it in 10 seconds. Yeah, there's a song I'll send you in the Facebook.
One of the most important things to ask as well is just to ask straight up their deadline is like probably one of the first questions you need to ask always. Budget and deadline.
Steve?
I try to, I remember when I was trying to figure out how to price things, I had another email account and I was just like, you know what, I'm going to fucking email a bunch of artists I like that are kind of similar to what I do.
That was you?
Yeah. I just to price out, and I was like, just to get a fucking idea of I was like, well, what should I be charging? And I kind of got a rough estimate, and I was like, I'll stay around that kind of price, and then as the years go on, sometimes you move up a bit because you're like, I want to get a bit more on this kind of stuff, or sometimes you might kind of go, I'll charge a bit less on that.
I did the same thing. I set up a fake email and I saw all my favorite guys, and I remember.
It was funny when I first started, because I thought it was kind of a bit like rude or something. But then, like, as I got older, like, sometimes I just see someone else, I straight up ask them, like, how much do you charge? And then, like, sometimes you see like someone and you're looking at their stuff and you're like, they're fucking like way better than me, and you're like, and they're charging a lot less or something. You're like, you should charge more, you know. So, I try to keep. It depends if you have like a solo artist and it's the same thing where they only have like 1 or 2 albums out. They're not a big band or anything. Like I do ask them, like, do they have a budget? And if they have a budget, I try to work with that budget. If it's lower than what I'd normally charge, and I'm like, actually, look, I have a bit of time, and they seem nice and all that, I'll do it.
I think a very relevant point there, Ken, is if there's a record label involved.
I read that from a magazine from Radim Matovic. I just read a lot of his articles in Advanced Photoshop magazine years ago, and he said that it depends. Most big graphic designers will judge budget based on client, and if the client is, if it's Nike, like the Nike logo was $150 to the original designer. That's all she got for it, and the way they say it is, how much is what you do worth to the company? And I don't mean monetary value. Imagine like you were going to charge someone to design the golden arches of McDonald's, that level of symbolism. So yeah, if there's a label involved, it's great. And if it is a small band, but they're as passionate as you are, like I had it fell through, but I had a band from Paraguay get onto me, and then lockdown happened. So I don't think they were getting an art fund in their country, because the arts office in their country will actually fund metal bands for production of album covers for albums, and they were going to sing in their local dialects. And I was like, I don't care if they've only got 50 cents. This would be so cool, because my wife is Colombian. To be able to go, I did this for a band from Paraguay, and it's all local mythology and local language, and it just sounded like one of the projects where they want to challenge you to do something that you never would have done on your own. So it's that kind of real kind of passionate factor comes into it quite a lot,
Yeah, I suppose as well, people will always, like, I don't know, I know, Ciaran, you're fed up with Facebook as a medium for promoting your material. Dedicated marketing efforts, how do you approach them?
I actually, like, when it comes to like that's actually all I'm using Facebook now for, would be like bands, like just publicizing stuff on various pages. But it is an awful place to try and get reach. It's all, yeah, it's like the algorithms and when you post and when what time you post, and there has to be an image involved, or it's not going to be seen, or it's ridiculous. Yourself, Richie, like just from probably posting the metal cell stuff, it's like it gets lost very easily.
But I mean, have you thought about other ideas in relation to getting your stuff out there?
Not really, no. Like I don't know. Like I'm taking it handy with this.
For example, I'll give you a good example. Kelvin Doran. I think he's got a good handle on how he markets himself online, and certainly he's getting a great reach as well. So someone like that who can land Macedon and As I Lay Dying, like, how do you approach marketing your own material?
I actually still think like some of the best like marketing for you is actually word of mouth still.
Yeah.
In Ireland, yes, correct.
Even like I've had like people like, even that fella, the DJ Hyper that I did his artwork for, like that was the DJ Zardonic is from like Venezuela, I think. So it was still, even though it was like through Instagram messaging and stuff, it was still word of mouth. He actually recommended them to me.
Dusty said the same thing. He said, because he knows I do the pop culture stuff, he says you need to get yourself to America and go to cons and meet people.
Yeah.
Most of my students want to put up their stuff on ArtStation and wait for someone to email them, but you need to have the social skills. You need to build.
Sure, myself and yourself, Ken, actually had this conversation about like, I don't think like I haven't really done a whole lot of like Irish metal band album covers, and it's like there's one side I was like, I wonder, I was trying to think about like, why is that? And sometimes it's just like, well, because Ireland's such a small place, it's like, it's kind of like who you know. Because like a lot of people, like if in metal bands in Ireland anyway, they'll get someone's like, oh sure, his brother or he draws, or so it's always all the bands that I've done artwork for, I'm like in Ireland I know or I've met or I'm friends with.
Yeah. I might start when I was midway through maybe in my 20s doing a lot of work, and a band would come along at the Siege and they'd be like talking about a new album, like oh, and then you kind of go, do you need art? And you go, oh, my brother, the drummer has Photoshop.
Yeah.
It's like, well, can he use it? That's a different thing, like,
Yeah.
Yeah, well, we'll figure it out, So, there's a bit of that too, But you know what? I just figured years ago. I did what was it called? The Ionian Sequence, the Shardborn album in 2011.
Yeah,
I did their artwork, and I did the original Zeta Cut demo. But then Shardborn were getting very successful in where they were, and they were able to reach out to the exact artist they wanted. Zeta Cult did the same thing. They got Paolo Berardi. They got the artist from Italy, the oil painter, to do.
Amazing.
I was still doing the InDesign stuff, but they got this artist, and then they got Mark Riddick to redesign their logo on the T-shirt I saw you wearing, Richie, in the Olin episode. And at first I was like, oh, the lads don't want to ask me anymore. I was like, and then I was like, actually, if you turn this around, this is brilliant, because everyone has gotten to a level that they can make those choices. They don't need to just get the fella they know down the road to do their artwork anymore. Mm-hmm. I'm doing certain things for people in different countries. Mick and the boys are getting their man from Italy that they've always loved. And the Shardborn story is great because that artist never gives away his original paintings, and they convinced him to sell the painting to them for their mother. For the twins from
actually, it was hanging up on the wall behind us when we were recording the Crows album.
So that was a great story, like, because now that's a couple of boys who are so passionate about what they do. I remember when Ciaran what song, he just brings out a saxophone and starts playing the saxophone. I was like, I didn't know he could do that.
That was for you, Carosa,
brilliant.
We were recording the album and we were like, Jesus, this part would be class if it had a saxophone. He just like took out a saxophone, just started playing it. We were like, all right, cool. That's on the album.
So like there's quite a bit of a challenge then in relation for you to get new audiences in to get to know and like your work, lads. It's just something for you to think about.
It's a balance of how much social media do you want to invest in? It's like you got to cut through the noise. Do you want to be? Do I want a Stephen Lindsay piece of artwork, or do I want some guy from Fiverr and there's 50 million of him? And I know who Stephen is, but if I found work online that I just Googled artwork and I went, wow, that's amazing because that's just so original, and then you go research that artist, Yeah. My wife is actually studying the strategies of Pinterest because she said she's discovering how underused and undervalued it is. But it does feel like everyone's go-to is Facebook and Instagram. And I've purposely so far stayed away from Twitch because a lot of my students love Twitch and there's live Photoshop artists and stuff on Twitch. Where'd you find the time though?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I was just about to say, because again, like the whole thing of hand in hand art and music, like I think we all know bands that probably put out more memes and whatever, like on their social media than they put out music, and it's the same thing as being an artist. Like you could spend your days just like posting, stuff about what you're doing throughout the day, like then actually concentrating on your art, like it's that balance of like, are you doing it just for the eyes on you, or are you actually doing it because you want to put the work in? And it's the exact same thing, really.
That influencer culture is a little bit toxic in that way because people feel like if they have a bit of FOMO, like fear of missing out, if they don't post something today, they're going to lose followers. But what I've learned is the conversion rate. I'm a moderator on, and this is serious now, right? I'm a moderator on 2 He-Man groups with 60,000 people on each group, right? And then I look at someone who has 100,000 followers on Facebook. Now that person is 20, and they do their artwork and they put it on Facebook. But everyone who's on their Instagram, is 20. Can that 20-year-old afford to buy their work? Probably not. But if you have a reach of 60,000 people on a Facebook page, all who are in their 40s in your demographic, all have a basement and loads of disposable cash for your artwork and the collectibles and framed pieces that are signed, and that's what they want, are you not better off just getting the couple of emails from these guys who want to collect your work and become art collectors than having 250,000 people on your Instagram who don't want to pay you?
Yeah, like a like isn't worth anything, you know.
No, I know.
A like
Ciaran,
is not a conversion.
I know, Ciaran, you were lucky enough as well to get your stuff displayed in an art gallery in Middleton. That was pretty cool. I think that's a handy way to embrace, we'll say, the community side of where you live and work with people that would be willing to display your art in maybe a coffee shop or stuff like that, or restaurants. Like
I think it was like I've had like 3 or 4 kind of solo exhibitions, but again, like it's really difficult for me to be able to separate what I do for like the illustration side of things versus like the art painting side of things. Like it's hard for me to separate. Like I have 2 Facebook pages, like one for paintings and then the other one for like band work and stuff like that. And they are very different, like, but there is a crossover, and sometimes I'm like, should I be posting this on one or the other, or, you know, like, I don't know. And like you said, there's been so many things where I'm like, I've got loads of paintings that kind of cross over into like the weirder kind of occult illustration stuff that I'm doing. And would
you be hesitant putting them on a gallery in a restaurant, for example? Or?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I would be, but like at the same time, I know there's a lot of like the likes of, let's say, Alchemy Coffee in Cork or whatever, like would probably be the right place to put up that kind of artwork. And it is just finding the right place, because like, I don't know, it was like we were discussing earlier just about the whole art world in general, like, and the art as an institution, like, and that whole, you know, the whole Cork sniffer attitude and what is art and what constitutes as art. And like someone might look at the band work that I do and they're like, that's not art. That's like, you know, child's play or whatever, but then go in and look at a classically painted painting and they'll be like, that's art. So it's kind of, it's finding, I don't know, it's the crossover is strange. Like, you know, you can exist in kind of both worlds at the same time, I suppose. And for me, it's difficult to kind of separate them sometimes.
Think about that, even just if you had, just even say on that coffee shop thing you're saying, if you had like imagine if you had like 2 kind of like that coffee shops that were weird following your page, they're more likely to actually buy your artwork off you than if you had like 1,000 coffee shops all over the world that were just regular coffee shops following your artwork, because they just look at it and go, cool.
Yeah.
So it really depends, like, you know, like your followers don't really mean nothing on Facebook or Instagram, I don't think. Because even sometimes you go into it and you're like, a lot of fake accounts on this as well.
Yeah.
You know, it's just like,
the bots
so you cut out there, what did you say?
I'm just frustrated in relation to your stuff, Steve, how you could get that out even in printed form and get it displayed, because I mean, all it takes is maybe just to get one place to display that, and maybe you'll get a shitload of people really interested in it. In relation to what the success you're having on Facebook, which is fucking, I mean, I've been looking at your stuff for ages, and man, you get like 3 or 4 fucking likes on it, you know?
I like my actual art Facebook page, I've kind of just, it's nearly like abandoned at this stage.
Yeah, I wouldn't blame you, man. There's no fucking traffic on it. Like,
I have it set up that when I post
it's brutal.
it on Instagram, it just automatically shares onto it, and like I don't even click into it. It's kind of terrible. You'll see someone who have well, like you might get one message that someone had commented on your artwork 6 months ago, and then you're like, oh, thank you.
I remember like one of the last things that I tried to do to like get some sort of engagement was to do like a competition. And I was like, you know, I can't remember what it was. I think it was a t-shirt and a print or something like that. And I was like, ran the competition and whatever, like there was a good few people got involved in it or whatever. But the person who won it, like I contacted them. I'm like, you know, here's the t-shirt and the print that you won. They're just like, oh, okay, no thanks, no nothing. And I was like, can I get your address to post it out to you? And they're just like, send me the address. And that was it. Never heard anything from them again. No thanks, no nothing. So I was like, even fuck this. Like, I'm not doing that again.
What's funny is like, I actually, the most work I find on Facebook isn't from me posting on my page. It's from posting my artwork in like there's like, say there's a page for like, it's like book authors who are looking for artists, and you post it there, so you're more likely to find them there.
Yeah.
And my Instagram, it's kind of just, that's the one, because you kind of do need a bit of social media, especially.
And it's not the designer page either; it's the actual author page, because that's the client,
Yeah,
So,
and then
I find as well, like places like Reddit. Like I never properly used Reddit until a while back. Like, and when I got into it, like there's a community for everything, like everything. Yeah. So even if you did some artwork that's based on something very specific, you'll find a community that are into whatever subject that is, and if you just post it in there, like you'll get hundreds more people that would ever engage with you on like Facebook or whatever. Yeah. Like,
I actually found,
I'm going to have to jump off. I'm afraid. I'm so sorry. I could talk all night, but I had to go collect my son. So,
Ken, one bit of advice for anybody starting out. Go.
One bit of advice is I know we're all approachable. We're not these unapproachable artists that I grew up with in the 80s and 90s, or photographers who didn't want to give away their techniques. It's one of the things I wanted to say. If there is any young upcoming artists, or anyone wants some Photoshop techniques or asking about gear or whatever, throw us a Facebook message or whatever,
Brilliant. And where can they find you? And roughly?
Just by Art of Ken Coleman on Facebook. You'd find me there, no problem.
Excellent. Ken, we'll leave you go. Steve, thanks a million, man.
Good to talk to you guys.
Yeah. Steve, one bit of advice for anyone starting out.
See you guys.
See you, Ken. Thanks again.
No problem.
Now is just... Well, one thing I did actually when I was starting out doing the album covers is I just fucking did a load of album covers. I gave myself a little project to try to do 30 album covers. So it's in a way, it's one of those kind of, just practice, but it is like, it's like set something for yourself and then just keep at it, and you will see improvements. Like, especially if you try to recreate an artwork from like the previous year, you will see how much you've improved in a year.
Okay. Cool. Ciaran?
Yeah, just like that. Practice. Try and do something every day that you're like, and especially do things that you're not comfortable with. I think certain people can fall into like just doing the same thing over and over again, and you'll find an awful lot of artists use the same imagery, the same repetition, the same color schemes, the same whatever. Challenge yourself and do something completely different. Like, I think one of the I don't know where this idea came from, but like, was some psychologist or something said it before, or maybe someone else. It was like, everyone is born an artist. Like, every single person is born an artist, and it's when you lose that imagination that like you fall out of love with it or whatever. Like, but I think it's the people that continue to use that imagination are going to go on to become like what we would call an artist or whatever. But everyone is an artist. Like, there's people that are like, how do you do what you do? It's like, well, you can do it as well. Like, it's like, this didn't just come out of nowhere. This came from sitting down and putting work in, like, and being interested in it and spending lots of time trying to hone it, like, and develop. So yeah, that's anyone that wants to start it can start it. They should start it, and they should just do it every day.
Yeah. And as I said, both of you are approachable in relation to advice and anything. Yeah. For those that are starting.
Yeah.
Brilliant stuff. Okay.
Definitely.
Listen, lads, Steve and Lindsay of Parasite, thanks a million for coming on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
And Ciaran of Obsidian Imagery, thanks a million too.
Cheers, Richard.
So culturally, check out their websites, check out their Instagram, check out their Facebooks, and lads, thanks again, and crucially, support your local metal scene. Cheers.
See you, man.
See ya.